Given your success that you had as a player at Princeton, how much can you draw upon, the upsets that you were part of, and going into tomorrow's game, where given where you're seated?
Just a little. I think that the preparation when you're going into the tournament game is to remember that it's a game, and how you respond to each moment throughout the course of the game. You've got to do your thing. Coach Carrill, I remember distinctly before we played UCLA, said, and he used to say this to us all the time, "I'm preparing you to win the game." I think when the ball went up against UCLA, we all ran back on defense, all 5 of us. So we're not going to do that. But I understood his point, and I think that this team understands that as well. We're giving them every opportunity to win.
Dane O'Neill with ESPN. Hey, Mitch. You lost 2 key guys to injury this year, and a lot of people didn't necessarily think you'd be sitting where you are. What did not just you do to kind of get everybody back together, but what did your players do?
Well, we had a meeting after we lost at home to St. Joe's, and Pete Miller, one of our seniors, said one sentence, but to the group, we're going to start guarding, and we're going to win the championship. And I've been in meetings before where those words are said and it doesn't ring as true, but it was like it reverberated throughout all of us. We went up to Monmouth and played a tough game, and it was a very high-scoring game. And then our pace slowed down. I think that was the key, one of the keys for us. We played at Bucknell, and I think a really quality road win. I know they're here. And then it was the emergence of Miles and Devin for us. Miles being a particularly great two-way player, I think anywhere. He can guard multiple different positions. That was it. I think that, didn't see us going on a 19-game streak, but I really thought that at that Monmouth game, I was like, we're going to be just fine.
Let's go Mark first and then John right next to him.
Yeah, 2 questions. First, could you talk about sort of appreciation you have that the game caught up to Coach Carrill's, co-opted a lot of Coach Carrill's principles of how to play the game first, and then secondly, I've heard you quoted your experience of going against the Butler teams, how that influenced you to maybe my sense is be more flowing, a little less rigid on run this play and that play. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I'll answer the second one first. We played Butler at Butler when they went to the final game with Gordon Hayward as a sophomore and those guys, and then we played them the second year. I'm sorry, freshman. He was a freshman. Then we played them the second year, the first time we went to the final game, and we got rolled both times at Northwestern. I mean, I thought we did. I mean, it was. I remember they were on everything that we were doing, and this had happened a couple times. In fact, it happened to us in the second round of the NCAA tournament when we played Michigan State, and I felt like, and this was just me, that if we were going to prepare to beat the very best teams on our schedule, that we needed to be a little just less guardable, less predictable, more flowing. And that started really in kind of with recruiting. And but this wasn't like an overnight decision. It happened with the players that were arriving. And I think that Miles Stevens is kind of the example of that, like a very versatile two-way player that's made a major impact. When you see him, you're not going to say, he looks just like every single Princeton basketball player I've ever seen. So we've locally and within the league, we've fought the stigma of like the Princeton offense, and it's gone for us. Nationally, people are going to find out that we don't play like that. I mean, the principles, which answers the first part of the question, good spacing, good players, and take good shots. And we don't have an aversion to the three-point line or taking them. A lot of people like to point out we take a lot of them, and I'm like, yes, we do, and we want to see it go in. So it's a valuable shot in this game, and especially when you can kind of go inside and out. And I think that it stretches the defense, and when you put 5 guys on the floor that can make a shot, everybody's playing with a pick and pop 5 or a 4, including Notre Dame, and it's very hard to guard. And we've been playing like that forever.
John, go ahead.
Yeah, Mitch. I mean, every student athlete's dealing with some academic, pressures, challenges right now. What about the fact that some of your players are going through midterms right now, and what are the challenges that they face And also, how much added workload was put on your players, given the fact that you had to play in the Ivy League inaugural tournament?
It was an extra week where you could be relaxing potentially and sort of balancing your week. But we play Friday, Saturdays in our league, and we talk right in the spring, really with the returning players, and then in the fall we meet, and the seniors and the juniors walk through their schedule and how they balance it. In fact, Steve Cook's one of the best guys at balancing his schedule, and he goes through his planner on Sunday nights and he says, "This is how I do it." And the freshmen sit there and their jaws drop down, like, "I can't believe this is." You have a minute scheduled instead of taking a 45-minute lunch. You take a half-an-hour lunch, and I don't think you can do that until you walk through it yourself. So this is normal for us. I think we have close to 20 midterms this week between the team. And this morning I got down to we have sort of 2 rooms at the hotel, and 1 room's for studying, and half the team was in there at 8 a.m. This is what we do, and and when they get out here, we always just talk to them about be where you are. So when we walk out there, we're going to be flying around, and then we go back to the hotel. We study.
Right here, and then we'll go to the back. Dana, go ahead.
Mitch, just how difficult is Bonzie Colson as a matchup for not just you, but for anyone out there?
Yeah, he's a very underrated player. I worked with Craig Robinson for a long time at Northwestern, and Craig was a terrific player at Princeton. And I would always tease Craig. He had from the feet to the hips, he was like 7 feet tall, and then he had sort of a he was. That's how Bonzie is. He's proportioned in a way that makes him very difficult to guard. And if you've played, you can kind of understand that. He presents a lot of problems for everyone that guards him because he's shifty. People say it's an old man game. We have a player in Spencer Weiss people describe as playing older. I think it's just great basketball. He's terrific at kind of every part of the game. Great rebounder. He picks and pops. We're going to have to guard him with multiple different guys. We've had some success in our league. There's multiple teams that play with a very skilled 5. So, but that said, we haven't seen anybody like him. So we know it's a challenge. We're ready for it.
Tim Priester, Irish Illustrated. Coach, obviously you have a lot of mature players, and I'm sure Devin Kennedy fits right into that category. But what is your level of concern with the emotions he might be facing playing against his hometown team, that he knows those players? Demetrius Jackson used to be a teammate, and I don't believe Notre Dame offered him a scholarship.
Yeah, I think a year ago I would have had maybe a high level of concern. But he's grown so much with the loss of the 2 seniors in a leadership position, and he's going to have to maintain a level head. There's always a game within the game, and Devin he's a light bulb of a kid. He comes into the gym, and I always tell everybody right before he takes the floor, he says Mishawaka like as loud as he can, which is where he went to high school, and it's right next to Notre Dame. So, but I think that whatever you need to use to get motivated, I think that you should use it. And Devin, he doesn't need much. Mishawaka Marion. Right, no, well, yeah. Yeah.
Go right down here to the right.
Coach, I was wondering if you could talk a little about which teams, rather, both past and present, obviously starting probably with the Princeton teams of Pete Grill, but not ending there, inspire your guys' offense, which tends to be more free-flowing and frankly reminds me as much of some NBA teams as it is some college teams.
Good. I'll go with the NBA comparison too. You're going to say the Warriors.
Whatever you say.
I'll sort of repeat myself probably, but we start off with 3-on-3 and 3 guys playing together, 1 guy being kind of a post. So we've played this way for a long time, but the Coach Kittles, who's on staff, calls it the modern game. This is the modern game. This is when he was playing in the NBA in the 2000s, and they were running kind of some of the Princeton stuff. We've modernized it, and we just moved it away from the basket a little bit more. We've had great centers, true 5 centers, and with this team, we're a little bit more on the perimeter, but we're playing through posts. Spencer's a post, Miles is a post, Pete Miller, Will Gladson comes in as a bigger post. And I think that we've found ways to really highlight the strengths of the group, much like Draymond Green is I coached against Draymond when I was an assistant when he was at Michigan State. And he didn't take a lot of threes, but he's developed and become a great passer. And a lot of guys that have played at Princeton will say, I didn't know I was a good passer. And then you graduate with a ton of assists. And it's just like, we ask them all the time, what do you see? What do you see? Like, don't you see that? And you got to work on that part of your brain. So I think that's as much what it is as anything else, is learning how to adjust your thinking. That's a rhetorical question usually. I don't want them to answer it. What do you see? I know what you thought you saw. This is what you're supposed to see.